Welcome to April and Debbie Dish the Truth on Weight Loss, where we share the raw, real, and sometimes messy truth about our weight loss journeys.
I am Debbie, a weight loss coach who has lost 100 pounds and have been living in maintenance for 4 years.
And I'm April, a weight loss coach, currently down 79 pounds and continuing my journey to lose 100 more.
Together, we'll explore the ups, downs, and everything in between, showing you that lasting weight loss is possible no matter where you are on your path.
Absolutely. And so we asked for some questions and we got a few. So we're going to talk about Melissa's question where she wants to know, how do you train yourself to stop eating before you get the very full feeling?
Well, I am 4 years into maintenance and I'm still working on that. There's lots of what do you do, April, when
Yeah. So I think avoiding the very full feeling is something we want to do because we don't feel good afterwards, right? When it's that like Thanksgiving belly, you just,
Mm.
oh, I need a nap, or I'm too full, or I have to unbutton my pants, or and you just don't feel good. You're not as productive during the day. So we are trying to not do that. And of course, that will lead to weight loss as well, because you're not overeating anymore, right? But I think I do have some tips that I've done, and I think Debbie, you do as well. But before we get into the tips, I do want to say that when it comes to eating enough or just under full, I think we have to remember it's not a defined answer, and it's not going to be the same every day or every meal. Your body fluctuates with its needs, with how much energy it needs. If you're a busier day, a more relaxed, just lounging around the house day versus working, or some people even might think, I'm at a desk, I'm not really moving, but you're using brain power, which essentially your body will need energy for that. So it is going to want food. And I think we get caught up on like, this is the answer. I have to do it this way every time. So if I don't, I did it wrong. But I think for me, when I started to realize that if I did overeat at a meal, I noted it in my head, like, ooh, that was too much. I feel too full. I kind of have a little indigestion. And I just noted it for next time, and then I started to incorporate. So here are where the tips come in. So I did start to incorporate some things. So there's lots of things out there. And with whoever you listen to, there's going to be an idea. And the
Mhm.
thing that we've talked about before, try it. If it doesn't fit you, don't keep trying to do it. Don't say this person did this and it worked for them, so it has to work for me. That's not the case. There's plenty of things I hear that other people do. I personally would not want to do them. I would not enjoy it. I would not feel good about it. Um, as an example, because this has been talked about since way back in Weight Watcher days and stuff, like closing the kitchen at a certain time.
Mhm.
So for me, that feels very restrictive. And if I had a wonky day and my day ran late and it's now 8 o'clock and I feel hungry, but I'm telling myself I don't eat after 7, then I'm going to feel like I've done something wrong. So that doesn't personally work for me, but I know it works for a lot of people. So, and that's okay too. So I just want to put kind of like that disclaimer. These are ideas that I have done that work for me, and try them on, and see if they work. But a big one that helps me is getting up and away from the table. So, like, if I'm eating a meal and I feel like I'm kind of getting, and we have these whispers, our brain talks to us all the time. So, there are certainly whispers. You just have to kind of start to listen for them. So, I know for me, I'll feel like I'll hear it. Oh, I think I've had enough. Like, my
Yeah.
brain literally says it to me. I think I've had enough. And I immediately am like, "No," and pulling the plate back or whatever. So now when I hear that, and if I'm kind of halfway through my meal, I get up and go get some more water, or I go to the bathroom. Like, I break from the environment, right?
Yeah.
Just for that moment. And if I come back and I still feel like I'm hungry and want to eat more than I do, that's been a huge thing, especially at restaurants or like family gatherings. If we're all there because you're talking, you're caught up in the moment. So I'll get up and go to the bathroom. It definitely in those moments and just take a minute, step away, kind of like assess my situation of hunger. That was a big one for me. Do you have one that you use that helped you a lot?
Well, and Melissa, I think that this is something that is very important for and everybody who is listening. I'm 55 years old, and my weight loss, my successful long-term weight loss journey did not happen until 6 years ago. So for 49 years, I ate too full probably every single meal. And, growing up in a food insecure home, it was eat as much as you can because you don't know when you may have it again. And that carried over into adulthood. So it was learning to listen to my, like, full is normal for me. And it's defining a new normal to move you forward to your goals. So for me, I always know when I am looking for the best bites on my plate that I have had enough. And so when I'm looking for this is something that was so instrumental when I started losing my weight. You look at your plate and let's just say you've got vegetables, a starch, and a meat on your plate. And everybody thinks, oh, I got to eat my vegetables first. No, no, I always ate my favorite thing on the plate first because I'd rather have that and enjoy it because it makes it easier to stop eating when you realize you've had enough. If you're eating all the things you think you should be eating on that plate, you're going to look at what is your favorite still on that plate and be like, well, I'm not missing out on that. So you eat it. So eat your favorites first. And then if you start moving around your plate looking for more of that favorite, for me, that's a sign I've had enough.
That's a good sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always do. And I also think so important, April and I were talking about this before we jumped on, is waiting till we're hungry to eat. It is so important to stop when we've had enough, but it's also important to not eat until we're actually hungry. And a lot of times we'll eat out of habit because, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's what you do. And, you don't have to do that. I have learned that I always used to eat breakfast at 6 or 7 o'clock. Truly, I'm not hungry until 9 or 10. And it takes some adjustment because it's not the norm, but we've been doing the norm for so long and not having success. So maybe the norm's going to change a little bit.
That's true too. I waiting for hunger is really good too. And with that, I want to say I've done it a little differently. I do wait for hunger, but it's a little different in the sense of like I am a very much breakfast, lunch, dinner person, but I have now migrated away from like eating. So, and again, Debbie and I were talking about this before it got started. So I'll talk about it again that I am working on focusing on foods that really make me feel good and fuel me for a longer time.
Mm.
Right. So I do have a job where I have flexibility to take lunch whenever I want, but I do eat before I go because I I need brain power for the day, and I might not necessarily feel like ravenous or starving when I first wake up. Some days I do, some days I don't. Um, but I do believe in fueling the body so you can get through your day, be focused, all of this stuff. So I focus on protein heavy, some healthy carbs, whether it's sweet potato or whatever you happen to like, but a balanced. When I went through my coaching certification, they've called it the magic plate. So just a well-rounded plate of, protein and some complex carbs and some fat like an avocado or something like that. But you find things that you like to balance it out. So I have breakfast usually about 6:30, but then I'm not hungry until like 1 o'clock. So that's like what 5 hours later. So it's a longer span of time where before, when I wasn't focusing so much on the quality of the food that I was eating, I would eat breakfast and then an hour and a half later, I was hungry because I was having nothing with really long lasting nutrients to it. Not that you have to have the healthiest food all the time. Of course, it's about balance, but on a day to day basis, we do want to focus on that because again, at least for me, I have found that I'm able to stay focused. I'm not as distracted at work. I don't have like fog brain. I can remember 2 plus 2 is 4, just the basic stuff.
Yeah.
So, um, but waiting for hunger. So when I'm at work and then it's like, it'll start to be around 12:30, and I'll actually think like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little hungry. But there's no panic that sets in because when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I ate breakfast at 6:30. That makes complete sense. Where before when I was just having like maybe a piece of toast or something small and a fruit or whatever, it would be an hour later, I'm hungry, and then I'm questioning, why am I hungry? Why? So paying attention to how to balance that, if that makes sense, was really helpful for me.
It does. And I think that this is such a good example of how our normals are so different. Like for
Yeah.
me, it's normal for me to wait. And for you, so I think of everything we want everybody to learn through our podcast is our normals are so different, not just in weight loss, but in life. I mean, it's just it's an important thing to remember. So, and there are so many, I know you have more tips too, but especially going out to dinner, like for a lot of us, going out to dinner is it's an event, right? You're either going out maybe on a date night or out with friends and maybe to a restaurant you don't go to often, and the plate comes out and there's enough on that plate for three people. And you know, what a way to show up for your future self than when the server brings your meal to you, say, could I have a to-go container? And put half of it in a box. And because when you go out to eat, look at what is on your plate and then compare it to what is on your plate when you're having dinner at home. Like the two don't really probably mesh very well. So, bring your serving down to what you would serve at home, and then you'll get a couple meals out of it, which is an added bonus.
I agree. That's always a great tip. And also thinking of when you're trying these things on, think to yourself, is this something I would want to do most times? Right?
Mm.
Not necessarily for the rest of your life. Everything always looks different. Who I am today is not, we talked about that too. Like I am very different from what I was last year, what worked for me last year. It's a little different this year. But I know for me, I'm always going to have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So getting up from that table at the restaurant to go to the bathroom makes complete sense to me. It's not something I have to like think about because I've increased my water. So most likely I have to go as well. And we're just ordering the box. If you like take leftovers, that's something that's super easy to do. That's not anything you have to kind of go out of your way to do because they automatically usually will offer that for you at a restaurant anyway. So I think that's a
Yeah.
great thing too. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what else do you do for practicing enough?
So there's two things. And I did one of them when I was going through the certification program, and it's a little bit of a different take of what they instructed. So what I did was I wondered how long. I've always counted myself as a slow eater. So one day I was like, you know what, I'm going to start timing how long it takes me to eat my lunch at work, because at work was where I was tending to overeat at this period in time, my meal for the day. So I got my lunch out and I hit the stopwatch on my phone, but I didn't look at it. I hit it and I turned it over and I put it away. So I wasn't like watching how long it had been. And
Yeah.
I just ate like I normally would eat. I would do whatever I was doing. And then when I was done, I checked the stopwatch and I was amazed to find that I was done at 8 minutes, because I feel like that's fairly quick, where I thought I was taking like a whole half hour to eat my meal, and that was not the case.
Right. 8 minutes. Hello.
So yeah, so I assessed, I was like, okay, at 8 minutes, and I did it for like a week, and it was pretty consistent. Some
Yeah.
days were 7, some days were 9, but it averaged out about 8 minutes. So what I did from there was I then started to set the timer for 8 minutes. I still put the phone away. I did not want the visual of seeing the phone. I still wanted to eat like I would normally eat, but I put the phone away after I hit this timer. Now I set a timer for I set the timer for 7 minutes, like a minute under,
Yeah.
because you want to try to go under enough, right? So not under enough, but under full. You don't want, right? So I set it a minute less. So I did it for 7 minutes so I could assess where I was. So I did that. And as I was eating it, I don't know, Debbie, if you find this, but I know in the busyness of life and just your mind, my mind's always going so many different directions. So I took a minute to mentally tell myself, I'm eating my lunch right now. I'm in my car. We used to eat our lunch in the car at this job. One, I won't even get into that on the podcast, but it was just a very weird dynamic of an office. So I was in my car eating my lunch, and I would tell myself that instead of like listening to a podcast or reading a book or whatever I would choose to do. I just kind of like sat with my food. I was like, it's 7 minutes. At that time, I had an hour lunch. So I was like, this is 7 minutes of my time, right? So I just sat there and I told myself, I'm eating my lunch right now, and I would eat it and I would just really enjoy it. And then when the timer went off, whatever was left, I just sat there and I set another timer for 3 minutes. And then I would do podcast listening or reading or whatever I chose to do. I would distract myself with something else. And after that 3 minutes, if I still felt hungry and wanted to eat what was left in that dish, then I did. I would say 90% of the time, I did not eat what was left in the dish.
I
So that
love
was a very natural exercise for me, and I enjoyed it. And it was really a lot of information.
that. And I love that you talk to yourself and tell yourself I'm eating my lunch. I'm going to
Mhm.
enjoy this and setting the timer. And I think some people may think, well, that seems like a lot of work. Well, it really isn't. It's setting a timer. Hey, Sarah, I won't say it
Yeah.
because my phone will do it, but you know what I mean? It's being willing to look at things that seem a little bit different and try them. And when you said 8 minutes to eat your lunch, I kind of chuckled because I am a Hoover. And
2.2 seconds.
I don't even think that I don't even think I go a full 8 minutes. I mean, I
Yeah.
will eat my dinner plate and I'll look over at Kevin and he still has so much. And I know what I'm doing when that happens. I'm hustling myself because if I eat really fast, I don't have a chance to
Mhm.
notice that I've had enough. So your point is so good because we need to slow down our eating. We need to be more aware. And you can still have all the food if you choose to and you're still hungry, but just be aware of the pace. Give your body this. I'm just gonna stop right now and let April say something that is like a mic drop. I hope it's okay to bring it here, but it just makes sense right now.
I It's fine. I'll absolutely share it. I shared with Debbie before the call. So my husband had, I'm going to share with the world, he had his colonoscopy today. So he went through the colonoscopy prep of bone broth and jello only for like 24 hours, whatever. So this morning he was like running on fumes, and he came out with this doozy of a quote that just really kind of smacked me in the face in the moment, because I was kind of I'm following a different program of what I'm trying to do right now. So it's different, and I have to kind of see how this all unfolds. So there's patience involved, which I don't always have the best level of patience. And so Kevin's super supportive of what I'm doing. He agrees with it. He thinks it's super great. And he's like, long story short, he comes out with this quote that said, you have to go by the pace of your body, not the pace of your patience.
Yeah.
I was like, he's like, you can use that. I said, I'm absolutely going to use it. And I also Googled to make sure he didn't hear it from somewhere, but he did not. But it was such a, it can be applied to anything. Okay.
Anything.
So, of course, it applies to this situation of me wanting to lose weight. But if you're trying to go to school or save money or want to pay off debt, just anything that you're looking to achieve, you want to think about that. You want to go by the patience of like your brain, like Debbie had said when we talked about it, your abilities, your time, anything. The it's Our patience level makes things feel so urgent.
Mhm.
And that is it can bring you down in that moment, because you're like, I want it yesterday.
Like, why is it not, why am I
Yeah,
not at my goal weight now? And
right.
when April shared that with me, I was like, oh my God, that is so amazing because it is. So when you're eating, we need to go like, I am impatient. I want to taste all the food immediately, but my body may want to taste the food immediately, but it doesn't want to taste it all. And so there's so much in that. And like you said, can be applied everywhere.
It can be, but especially with the weight loss journey, I'm going to say it again, that he said you have to go by the pace of your body and not the pace of your patients. So it kind of also ties into what you had said. Some people might hear my story of the exercise that I try to think, oh, that's a lot of work and this, that, and the other. It takes time. Absolutely, it takes some time. But if you are on this journey because you want to be healthy, you have to understand and accept there will be work and there will be things that will take some more time and that will take a more effort. And like Debbie said, you want to be willing to do that for yourself. And it really wasn't a lot of time. It was a couple moments to press the buttons and stuff, but it was time and effort and work for me to be willing to do the work, to do the exercise, to find out the information for myself, right? And when I have that natural pause, it's usually around that 7-minute mark. So I kind of know, like, yeah, my body's hitting where it needs to be. And now it's time to take a pause, and that's okay. And leaving food behind was a big
Uh-huh.
it was a big struggle. And
Yeah.
sometimes it still is. Some days it's super easy for me. Some days I still have to negotiate with my head, like, I can have it later if I want more. You grew up with food scarcity. I was kind of the opposite in the sense of food was my mother and my way to cope with the life that we were in. It was very it was a like I've talked about before, my dad was an alcoholic and a drug addict. There was lots of violence. It was a really, really difficult environment to grow up in. And my mom and I would just go out, we would eat, we would go home, we would eat. It was always just food. Food was comfort, food was happy, food was safe. It
Yeah.
just so many things were connected to it. So I'm now rewriting that story of the connection to food that I've had for 40 plus years
Mm.
and now translating it into food is nutrients and to make me feel good. And sometimes, yes, just to be enjoyed. And that's okay too. But when you're enjoying food because of a happy occasion or because, oh, I just love sushi, so I'm going to go get sushi, other than using food to cope with emotions, those are two very different experiences.
Mm.
Um, I have learned.
So, and yeah, so different. And to learn how to step out of that comfort and safety of the food to that. I mean, that I know that didn't happen overnight, right? It takes,
Yeah.
again, practice and
Yes.
patience. And I mean, we need to remember that everything is going to take time and it's going to take the effort and it's going to be when you have that thought, oh, I don't want to. I have a client and I think this is so great. She sets the timer for 2 minutes, puts her fork down for a minute, and she just alternates until she has found her enough. And those are the things that we have got to try to figure out what works best for our body. And, we have know you're going to have food. That was one of the biggest lessons I learned from my coach. And you probably have learned, well, you have learned as well, is, just because I was insecure, food insecure growing up, I'm not. I'm a 55-year-old adult who has we're daily shoppers, so we don't have a ton of food. Like it's not stockpile, but only because we shop daily. But there is food. And Kevin and I live in a house by ourselves. Nobody's going to eat my food. Kevin knows not to eat my Ben and Jerry's ice cream or my, I don't know, are we allowed to say people's Post Malone Oreos? They are,
You know, he had an Oreo.
oh my God, they are so, so,
I'm gluten free, so I can't eat Oreos, so they're not
oh
on
my
my
God,
radar.
they're shortbread and caramel and
Oh wow.
we went to Walmart today to pick up some medication and Kevin said, "Do you want to get some Oreos?" And I'm like, "Well, yes. Yes, in fact I do." But I also knew that if I bought them, I would eat the entire package tonight. So I chose not to. And not because I'm restricting, but just because I want to be aware. Like I know what will happen, and is that how I want to show up today? It isn't. I want to show up differently.
I think it's good too that you bring up the word restricting. I think that it's such a anything that anybody sees anybody doing, they're like, "Oh, that sounds restrictive." Or we tell ourselves like, "I'm restricting myself from this." So for you, you didn't want to eat all the Oreos. I have certain things that chips. I love chips and I still could happily eat more than a serving of chips. But I don't want to because I know that's not beneficial to my goals. So I immediately, when I bring chips into the house, they go downstairs into the basement because I know me and I'm not going to walk downstairs into that basement to have a handful of chips. It's just not what I would do. So some people might take that as it's restricting myself in terms of removing it, but it's making the environment that I look at when I open my pantry, I see the other foods that I necessarily wouldn't just eat handfuls of. And I would have to prepare to make a meal. So there's a little bit more effort for me there. But I found that very helpful. It was super easy to do. It took it out of my initial eyesight, and impulse was like taken out of the, because I have to think about walking downstairs,
Yeah.
right? Instead of just I'm in the kitchen, I see the chips, I'm going to grab the chips. But the other thing I wanted to go back to really quick about the enough too is one thing I put in my clients' questionnaire, like kind of when we go over food and stuff, is if the meal lasted 3 to 4 hours. I think that's a great starting point. So if you're trying to find enough, and this is back to Melissa's question, enough is variable to everybody, right?
Mhm.
And we don't want to take enough and make that mean what's the least I can eat to get by. I think
Mhm.
that women, especially, because we're always taught eat less to lose, eat less to lose. That's not always the case. Most of us have very busy lives, a lot going on. You do need fuel to get through the day happily, more patient, sane. So you want to fuel a body. And if you're eating something and an hour later you're feeling hungry, then that meal probably wasn't necessarily enough for you for your day. And I think that's something to really be important to pay attention to as well. I don't know if that's something you've looked at for your days, Debbie, but I know that was a big part for me.
And that is 100%. I agree with you 100% because if we are, yes, we are going to have to eat less to lose weight, but we also don't have to starve ourselves to lose weight. And I think that because of what we have learned in all of these different diets that we have tried, is that you have to eat 800 calories. Well, you cannot survive on 800 calories. Your body, I mean, you can, but you're not, it's just going to send you into a place of lack. And really, your weight loss journey, and you're not going to get there immediately, but it should be from a place of lush and luxurious. Like I am showing up for myself. So where we can think that we're restricting, you know, I'm not restricting. I am showing self-love to the person that I am becoming. I am showing and I do. So yes, I do think that people eat too little and it can have the opposite effect. If you eat too little, you could gain, you could just stay in maintenance. And I think that's important to remember.
It is very important, and it is that's actually something I'm working on right now with the coach that I'm working with one on one. And I talked about this before, having PCOS, so I have hormonal stuff and insulin and resistance going on and stuff like that. And I was cutting back so much that I wasn't losing. And I also went back to binging more often, not every day like
No.
I used to, but it would be, I had gotten to a point where my binges were maybe once every few months if something like was super upsetting or I was just having a bad day and or I went back to old habit, whatever. But as I was cutting back so much, and friends, my husband, many people were pointing out to me that they did not feel like I was eating enough food, I found that the binges were coming back maybe every few weeks. It would
Mm,
be only for a day because I've done so much work that I really am able to catch it and be like, okay, what's going on, and try to start again tomorrow with the sense of not wanting to binge and what can I do today. But now with this coach that I'm working with, I had undercut my calories so much for a 300-pound person that I am right now, still working on losing more. Like I started my journey a long time ago, 2014, when I hit 390, 379, not 390, 379. And now I'm 300. But So with her, I started, and in January, I lost 5.5 with increasing my food intake, which to me is just amazing. So with her, and I won't get too much into it because it's kind of a lot, and I'm still learning it myself. But with the PCOS and other things going on, what we're working on is bringing myself up to a calorie and macro intake where my body does maintain for a couple of months, where the body starts to feel safe and function, and insulin resistance goes down a little bit. And then you slowly decrease some calories to start to lose. And that's kind of the cycle that I'll be going through with her. But to even see it work that quickly was pretty impressive and amazing. And now I'm in this state where we're just maintaining for a little bit before decreasing them. But it's also a level of patience because I'm not necessarily going to lose weight every week. But I had hit a point where over a year and a half, I wasn't losing. There was other factors, of course, involved, but my food was very decreased and I wasn't losing and I was maintaining or even gaining and not eating a lot. And it wasn't making sense to me. So that led me down to what else can I find out and learn about? And now I'm in the stage of my journey. So,
That is so awesome, and it's interesting because you're learning to be safe.
yes.
You learned a different safety as a child around food, and now as an adult, you're learning in this program or the coach that you're working with, the safety of the food and that it's okay to eat more than you think you should be eating to lose weight because your body needs that extra.
And that's the key word, the should. I kept thinking I should be cutting less. I should be eating less, which I left the focus of paying attention to what my body was asking for. I thought what because I was really having a hard time focusing at work. I was very distracted. I had foggy. I couldn't remember things. Like I was just really struggling, but I wasn't hearing those signs of my body telling me I'm not getting enough. I just equated it to I'm not doing enough. So it goes back to how we talk to ourselves. And this is just another way for me to key back into my body. It's kind of like I won't be tracking forever, and neither does my coach want that for me either. That's not the goal. But these are kind of like, the bumpers they set up in the bowling alley. It's just temporary. It's to kind of get me back in tune with what is enough to have me feel good, how to balance the day with nutrients, and how to feel good throughout the whole day and not end a day at the end of the night feeling so hungry that I end up reaching for chocolate or chips because I didn't give myself what I needed throughout the whole day. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm learning right now.
Yeah, you don't want to finish the day feeling deprived. And because if we feel like we are depriving ourselves, we're not going to want to continue. We're going to just feel like this is too hard. And weight loss takes work. And remember Melissa, again, you are learning how to listen to your body. Everybody listening, it didn't take you overnight to get to the weight that you are now, that you're on this weight loss journey. It took us time so it's going to take time and learning. And I think that that's just so important. And I kind of like to give everybody a challenge. And I didn't even talk to you about this, April, but I would love to see this for anybody who is working on listening to your body for enough. April and I both learned this with the coach that we came together and met each other through, and leaving 2 bites behind on your plate. So I think it might be fun this week if save 2 bites off your plate, whether you do it every meal in a day or one meal, put it in a little baggie, stick it in the fridge. And I'd love to see comments next week with pictures of your saving the 2 bites, and did it help you? Did it help you focus on hunger a little bit more? And if you do it, we'll celebrate with you because it's all part of learning. You get to make your own book of tricks and tips that are going to move you forward, and ask those around you who you love to help you. I know April and I both rely on our Kevins for support. And like if I don't today, I didn't want to buy the Oreos, not because I was restricting, but what I was choosing for me. So tell people what you're working on that day and just ask for gentle reminders.
Yeah, I think that's great. And definitely reaching out, just like I know Debbie's certified in life and health coaching. I'm certified life and health coaching, but we each have our own coaches. I
Mhm.
know other coaches who have everybody needs help. However you want to find that, but definitely if you there's some people out there who feel like they don't have people. They don't have friends or maybe all their family is gone and maybe that is an option. I know that I have gotten so much from having a personal coach. So just know there's avenues, right? And if you don't want to have a coach, you can always even write in to us and send us an email, ask us a question. We will be happy to answer any questions. And if somebody hears us answer their question and they still have more questions, send a follow up email. We would love to just keep the open communication to help anybody we can.
Absolutely, and that is one of the things that or it is the thing that motivates us so much is just helping other people because you get by with a little help from your friends, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So, next week, we are going to be answering Lori's question. How do you come to love a new body, loose skin and all? So, that is going to be, I think, an exciting topic for us to discuss, I think. I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. And I think it's going to be interesting because you have lost 100 and I'm sure your body looks different than what
A
it
bit.
did, especially if you see the before and after your before and afters. We should definitely share at some point too on here, but really look great. I have before enduring pictures because I'm still on my journey, but body image is such a huge thing and it's such a great thing to talk about. So one, everybody knows that whatever thoughts you're having, we probably have them as well. If Debbie doesn't have it, I probably have it.
Yeah.
One of us will have it. And if I don't have it, she probably has it. So the thoughts are there and it's going to be really interesting to talk about it and share your experience and my thoughts and what I think is going to, go on with my body and stuff like that. So
It'll be
yeah,
so
I
good.
appreciate the questions that were sent in. It was really great.
Yeah. And Melissa, after listening to this, if you have other questions, like April said, just reach out to us. And our email address is, it's very short, not April and Debbie dish the truth at gmail.com. But send in the questions. Don't be a, we are an open book. And if you do not want to ask the questions on Facebook, we are there on email and it will all be kept between us.
Yes. Yeah, and if you don't want your name mentioned at all, certainly say that as well. We just give first names, but and if there's no questions, trust us, we will still be here talking. Debbie and I
We
have a
love,
lot to say
we
regardless.
love to talk. That is for sure. So, and I just wanted to point out one of the things that you said, April, and I know that it has been so instrumental in your journey. And I think willing, being willing, I know that was such a powerful word for you. And I think replacing the should with willing, I just wake up. Wait, I won't steal your thing, but I do,
It's
what you,
okay.
but I
Yeah, I
do
want everybody to say it.
yeah, I love that and I think about it so much from you. I mean, it was one of the things that I thought was so amazing when I first became aware of who you were, is the willingness. And yeah, so I'd love for you to share
Yeah,
again how important that is to you because it's
it's super important and still day to day. That is my mantra and my focus because again, I'm not necessarily if somebody said where would you be in 2025? I thought for sure I would already be 250. I thought I was going to have another 50 pounds gone by now, but it's not what happened. But I'm still willing to keep trying, keep learning, and know there's so much information out there if you just look for what interests you and what feels right to you. And that's so big to me. Um, I think we always feel like we have to find what somebody else is doing and making it ours. And again, we talked about this in other episodes that, of course, other people have great information just as we're sharing our information. And just as I said earlier, try it on, see if it feels good to you. If it feels good to you, keep it. If it does not, and it does not resonate with how you want to feel, then it's leave it for somebody else, but don't feel like you have to do something somebody else is doing because they had success with it.
Mm.
And I'm willing to try something new this year, even though it means weight loss might look different for me this year, but I feel good doing this right now and I'm excited and I'm learning more about nutrition, which is making me very excited. I've always been interested in it. So learning more about it is making just keeping my interest of what's going on. But every day I'm willing to just keep trying and keep now I have to be willing to go at the pace of my body and not the pace of my patients.
I love that. Well, I think
Yep.
I've enjoyed spending another afternoon with you. I hope
Me
everybody who
too.
listens to this enjoys what we're sharing. It means the world to us to hear what everybody is sharing with us.
Yes.
So I'm going to tell you to keep blooming this week and do what feels good.
Yes. And please wake up willing and do something that feels good to you.
Have a great week, and we will check in next week.
Bye.
Bye.